It is time for our featured prelim of the evening, UFC 249. Matt, I'm surprised that this fight isn't on the main card. I'm surprised this fight isn't the co-main event, because realistically, this is one of the best fights on our card. And listen, if I was able to give some leeway, I'd probably make this a 5-minute prediction video. We're definitely going to go way over the 2 minutes. Sorry to disappoint you. Clickbait thumbnail. Francis Ngannou taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. This is one of the best matchups you can have at heavyweight. Two guys that are really in the forefront of the division, because you got Francis Ngannou that so far in the UFC, he lost in his title bid at UFC 220 to Stipe Miocic. Then he had a stinker of a fight against Derek Lewis, but since then he's been able to absolutely right the ship. Crazy wins. I mean, he's beaten the likes of Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, like some of the best guys, not just now, but really, really key marquee names as well. And for Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he's one of those guys that's, you know, they kind of not spoon-fed him, but they gave him good opponents to start out with. And he's one of those guys that really took the world by storm. Nobody really knew what to expect. You know, you get a kickboxer from Suriname. You don't know what you're going to get. And all of a sudden, we're talking Alan Crowders, the Andre Arlovskis of the world, and he's absolutely destroying them. Then he takes on Alistair Overeem in a fight that, listen, it was a weird matchup on paper. It was his first 5-round fight in a main event, which is kind of crazy to think of, that he got pushed that quick. And he was getting beat in that fight until he wasn't. So what do you see in this fight here?
So, again, we talk about the Korean Zombie Yair Rodriguez fight a lot because you just cover the featherweight division because it's one of the more exciting ones. And we talk about that fight because it was one of the best fights of the year, of course, and it ended so spectacularly. The Jairzinho Rozenstruik Overeem had that spectacular finish, but the first 24 and a half minutes just weren't that exciting. And this is why I struggle really hardly to try to find a way for Rozenstruik to win this fight. I've seen him struggle against Alistair Overeem, and I've seen him struggle against Junior Albini. Those are two guys who, Francis Ngannou knocked out Overeem and basically put him in the shadow dimension. That's one of the scariest knockouts of all time. And let's be honest, if he fought Junior Albini, that's probably over in under a minute. And those are two guys who Jairzinho Rozenstruik had real trouble with. And I know MMA math doesn't make any sense, but at least in the heavyweight division, it gives you a little bit of an idea because guys tend to be a little bit less skilled and rely on the power a little bit more, so it just comes down to who can knock out who at that point. Rozenstruik's going to try to set up his kicks with his hands, but he's always going to try to finish that big left high kick or finish with something. He's going to throw combos, but make sure the last strike of every combo is that real, that hard finishing punch. Francis is just going to walk through a lot of that, I think. Stipe Miocic hit Francis clean on the chin with multiple right hands. And I know Stipe isn't the most powerful puncher, but he's a guy who kind of has that perfect mix of like speed, power, and cardio. And if you can take shots from him clean on the chin for 20, 25 minutes, like I just don't see how Rozenstruik can beat you. And Rozenstruik's not a takedown threat at all. So it's not even like there's a little bit of a threat like when he was fighting Derek Lewis and you were like, okay, I don't think he's going to take me down, but I still have to keep it in the back of my mind. Rozenstruik just doesn't even try in the first place. So I really think we are going to see a Francis open up early, and I think he's going to get him out of there pretty quick.
Yeah, and I mean, in the Ngannou fights where you had to worry about the threat of a takedown, we're talking Derek Lewis, which is strange, but we are, and I like that. Cain Velasquez, who attempted a takedown and got knocked out, and Curtis Blades, who tried it twice and got knocked out 2 times. So for guys like that, he's able to beat them. And in terms of former champions, Francis Ngannou's been able to beat former champions too. So that's the thing. So if we're really looking record for record, maybe it doesn't matter in this matchup. We're talking about two guys that just bring absolute fire and fury. They're main card fighters, especially on a pay-per-view happening on potentially Fight Island. Who knows? But realistically, this is one of the best matchups on the card. In terms of the odds, Rozenstruik a plus 220 underdog. I think that's fair against Ngannou, who's a minus 275. Surprised that Ngannou's not more of a favorite. But over on Tapology, that's where it makes all the sense in the world because out of 375 votes, 82% of the fans are going with Ngannou, 88% predicting a knockout. I think Ngannou's going to be able to get it done. I don't know how early it's going to be, but I think he's going to be able to pull out the win here.
I agree. I just think Rozenstruik, for what we've seen, is a little bit of a slow starter. Take away the Alan Crowder fight. I just don't really think you can count that one. In all seriousness, because Alan Crowder's not near the level of, the other guys who's been able to fight. Take every other fight that he's had, he's get off to slow starts. Francis Ngannou is the complete opposite of a slow starter. He is the fastest starter I've ever seen. So if he can just kind of get momentum in his favor, especially early on, because the good thing about Francis is once things start going well, they start going very, very well. Because a lot of the time in an Ngannou fight, he has to rely on that power. But once he is able to And a really good example of this, I can't think of the fighter, oddly enough, but Francis, he's really good at going to the body, going to the head. And if a guy is able to withstand that first big shot, it turns into a really bad night because he has really good boxing. It's not like he's a guy who has to rely on his power so much. So if Ngannou can kind of get into that flow state, if you will, and really let his combinations go, I think it's going to be a long night for Rozenstruik.
Last thing I'm going to say on this fight, the other thing, Jairzinho Rozenstruik was training for yet another 5-round main event, as was Francis Ngannou, but both of these guys with main event experience under their belt. They've trained for 5-round fights. It's got to be weird for everybody on this card, but especially for these guys that were training for a 5-rounder.
And I was just about to say that too, and I think it's a really important point that you brought up. A lot of these fighters haven't even had close to a full training camp behind them, but luckily there's one fight where not only have 2 fighters had full training camps, but they've had training camps for a longer fight than the one that they're actually going to have. So hopefully, we get the best version of this fight possible. Because let's be honest, heavyweight main events, if it's not for a title, don't always, make for the most exciting fights. They make for a really good 2 rounds, and then, so-so for the other 3. So honestly, this is probably the best case scenario for the fans, and I really think this fight's going to deliver.
Well, listen, you're not going to want to miss the rest of our predictions for UFC 249. 2 minutes for the prelims, 2 minutes for the main card, and 5 minutes for our main event. And it sounds so weird for an interim championship belt at lightweight between Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. Could be a future 2-time lightweight interim champion. So you're not going to want to miss that. And as we always say, Matt, with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.
Get into it.